Congressman Chip Roy. Thank you for being here
My
with me
pleasure.
and Tyler. How's it feel to be here?
It's great to be here. You know, my family has a lot of roots in East Texas. My parents lived in Mount Pleasant for about a quarter of a century. My uncle's up in Longview. My great aunt was here in Tyler for years. I used to come visit her. She passed last year. And, you know, the people of East Texas are you know, the backbone of Texas, and I'm great to be here.
Well, it's my understanding you have some history here working in this area, and we will get to that.
Sure.
But first, the bio. You've been in Congress since 2019, representing parts of Austin and the Hill Country, if I'm correct. Why leave federal office and seek the position of Texas Attorney General?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I've been honored to represent the people of Central Texas, the Hill Country. You know, notably last summer, going through the floods in Kerrville, and we're so grateful for all of the support and the prayers from people across the state and across the world, frankly. But, you know, part of that actually drew me back to my roots. My great-great-grandfather was a Texas Ranger. My grandfather was the chief of police of a town in West Texas, Sweetwater, former federal prosecutor, which we'll probably get to in a minute. I spent some time in the Eastern District of Texas and was the former first assistant attorney general. So I understand the law, I understand the agency. My first legal job was as a clerk in the prosecutor's assistance division. The state of Texas needs leadership, and you know, I've been blessed to serve up in Congress, but at some point when you're 1/435th of one half of 1/3, you realize there's a limit to what you can do. And so being in the executive branch leading the state of Texas, if it's, you know, it's up to the people, it's up to the good Lord, then I'm happy to do it, to go fight and defend the state of Texas.
Well, you may have predicted my next question. You mentioned you served as assistant attorney in the Eastern District of Texas. What did you take away from that experience? And was that here, you know, in Tyler, or was it kind of across the region?
Yeah, so I was an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District. I operated predominantly in Sherman and Plano, those two federal courthouses, living in McKinney, but worked with the judges here. You know, in fact, when I first got familiar with the Eastern District, it was on the issue of patents, which is a fairly significant issue here in Tyler. But I know this, you know, the whole area pretty well, all the way down to Beaumont, because I had to work with all the attorneys over here, and predominantly focused on gangs, drugs, guns, and as a part of what we call the Project Safe Neighborhoods program. So I spent a lot of time in court making sure that we were removing illegal aliens, going after cartels, going after the drug trafficking, taking guns off the street when they're involved with violent criminals and gangs. And it was a great experience being in federal court, standing before a judge, representing the United States of America, and keeping the state of Texas safe. But I had to work a lot with local law enforcement across the state of Texas, and it was an honor to do it.
If you're elected as the state's next top lawyer, what would you say are your priorities?
Well, there's a number. First and foremost, you've got to make sure that the Office of Attorney General is the best law firm in the state of Texas. It's the biggest. At 700 attorneys, you got to recruit the best talent. But secondly, you got to make sure that you're making sure we're stopping what has been happening with respect to DAs and judges putting criminals on the streets. There's a lot that the Office of Attorney General can do to be advancing on the bully pulpit, but also enforcing the laws. The Islamification of Texas is a major issue for the people across Texas, not just the East Plano Islamic Center. We've now got centers in Austin, the Islamic Center in Houston. There's 300 mosques across the state of Texas. And we view this as a political ideology that we've got to address and deal with. And then importantly, the border. We're not always going to have a President Trump. We're not always going to have somebody that's securing the border. We dealt with that under Biden and Mayorkas. We saw the devastation on the state of Texas, Jocelyn Nungray, a bunch of Texans that were endangered. And we've got to make sure we do our job to secure the border. And also election integrity. I'm the lead author of the SAVE Act. Now we're calling it the Save America Act. We modified it a little bit, working with the president. And President Trump and I have got a great relationships working together on that issue in particular and generally. And we've got a lot we need to do, and those are some of the key priorities.
You mentioned that the Islamification of Texas is a big problem in your view. Why do you believe that?
Well, when you've got a significant block of the Muslim Brotherhood who will tell you if they're at their centers in London and Paris that Dallas and Houston are ground zero for their desire to turn the Western Hemisphere into an Islamic state, and that Texas is the epicenter of that, I think that's a problem. I think we've got an ideological problem. I think we've got a political ideology that is driving this, that is trying to hide behind the First Amendment, which, of course, I'm the chairman of the subcommittee of the Constitution.
But what are they bringing you feel is harmful, though?
A direct tie to terrorism. A direct tie is, for example, CARE has unindicted co-conspirator from the Holy Land Foundation case in which we were indicting people that were affiliated with terrorist organizations. There's a reason that the governor has declared CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations. These are organizations with deep ties to entities that are involved in terrorist activities across the entire world, including, by the way, Hamas, as we were trying to deal with those issues, and I've been a leader on that front as well. And as this stuff is advancing in the state of Texas, we can't allow that to occur.
What would be your message, after what you just said? What would you say to those concerned, those comments may be harmful to those in the Muslim community?
I would say that you can believe what you want to believe, but if you're advancing a political ideology at odds with Western civilization, the Constitution, the Declaration, and the rule of law in Texas that Sharia law is completely incompatible with, then you've got a problem, and we've got to deal with it.
Why do you feel it's incompatible? I know you mentioned the ties to terrorist organizations.
Because Sharia law, you can't have multiple legal systems. You can only have one legal system if you're actually adhering to our philosophy in Western civilization. Sharia law puts multiple systems of laws in place. And right now in Scotland, they have 75 jurisdictions where there are at least two legal jurisdictions running side by side. That doesn't work. And by the way, and I'll just say this to anybody listening, if you like what's happening in London, if you like what's happening in Paris, then sit idly by. But if you want to make sure we can preserve the Texas that we inherited from our parents and grandparents, then we need to do something about it.
I do want to ask you about a law in Texas that's currently facing some legal scrutiny, Senate Bill 10, and that allows public school classrooms to display posters of the Ten Commandments if they are donated. Federal judges have ruled that law unconstitutional. Your thoughts on their ruling and what should come next for that bill?
They're wrong, and we should put the Ten Commandments up in classrooms. My friend Ted Cruz, who's endorsed me, litigated that very same issue all the way back in what we called Van Orden v. Perry. I think this was probably 2005-ish. The Supreme Court rightly held then that we can put the Ten Commandments on the Capitol grounds. And, of course, we can put the Ten Commandments in our public schools. We're a Judeo-Christian society. These are the foundations of Western civilization. We're not proselytizing. We're just putting forward what are the foundations of our civilization. And of course, we can do that.
I do want to ask you, what would you say to those who may want to see more religious texts in schools, like the Torah, or the Quran, in a similar fashion to the way that Senate Bill 10 was written?
Well, I think what I would point out is that those things are in conflict with our roots in Western civilization with Judeo-Christian values. But you can have
freedom of religion.
Right. The First Amendment says that you can have freedom of religion, which means you can believe what you want to believe. It doesn't mean that you can advance a political ideology in the form of religion, as is the case currently occurring with respect to Islam. I mean, go talk to people advancing Islam in the state of Texas. It's a political ideology to take over the state of Texas and Islamify it. They're open about it. CARE literally states it. The Muslim Brotherhood literally states it. So that's the goal. Then we need to recognize that that is a direct affront, by the way, with Sharia law in conflict with our values in Western civilization, which are rooted in Judeo-Christian principles. So we can acknowledge that. We can recognize the First Amendment protects your right to be able to practice your faith. But if you're engaging in political ideology that's trying to transform the state of Texas, we have a duty under the law to defend the state of Texas and our values that built this state.
If you're elected as the next Attorney General, you would be succeeding incumbent Attorney General Ken Paxton. It's my understanding you worked with him for a little bit, right? Is there anything about the office during his tenure you would like to see changed?
Well, look, the Attorney General did a lot of great work in pushing back on federal extension into our lives in Texas, defending Texas laws when they were being challenged. I support all of that and would advance that. I think we could have been more aggressive with respect to, for example, open government. That's one big issue.
Open government.
Yeah, I mean, the Attorney General's office has a very critical role when people are seeking information under the Freedom of Information Act and going to get information. Open government, we call it. And I think those have been delayed more than they should be. We need to be more expeditious. I think we should have been more aggressive in our declaration of an invasion when our border was under attack under Biden and Mayorkas, something I was observing when I was a member of Congress and trying to fight when people like Jocelyn Ungray were getting murdered by gang members from Venezuela like Tren de Aragua. We need people who are going to be on the front line saying, look, you don't get to do that. No matter who's in the White House, they don't get to open our borders up to endanger the people of Texas.
Do you think that Attorney General Paxton did an adequate job of trying to secure the border, I guess is the question?
Well, look, I think the Attorney General was defending the laws of Texas and working with the governor to try to do that. What I'm saying is we could have always been more aggressive. I think we could have been earlier in being aggressive on declaring an invasion and try to stop the flow across the border to secure the state. I think we could have been more aggressive on a few other fronts. And look, I just think the office could continue to evolve and be better, especially with modern technology, the ability to use technology for information flow on things like open government so that we can allow people access to information. If you want to know, for example, how many criminals are being put back on your street in Tyler, Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, you should be able to get that information quickly and not be obstructed by bureaucrats. And the Office of Attorney General has a duty to do that.
Now, if elected, you would be working at the same time as the White House. How cooperative do you plan on being with the Trump administration if voters choose you to be the next AG?
Yeah, well, I talk to the president virtually every week. We have a great relationship. We've been working together. We got the big, beautiful bill passed. We got a bill passed last year called the SUE Act as part of the Lake and Riley Act to allow states to be able to sue the federal government for failing to secure the border. We're working literally, we were talking just yesterday about dealing with the appropriations bill where they're trying to defund ICE. We're trying to push back on Democrat leader Jeffries on what they're trying to do to shut down Homeland Security funding. We've worked together on multiple issues and have a great working relationship. And I'd continue that in the Office of Attorney General with my great friends in the administration, and the Department of Justice, and throughout their team.
Say the Trump administration comes out with a legal opinion you disagree with. How will you respond? How will you react to that?
Well, I mean, Trump administration come out with a legal opinion. I mean, it's not like they put out a lot of legal opinions, right? Judges put out opinions predominantly. The Department of Justice will go take a position. Usually this administration is going to be very much in line with our positions and have been. They've been trying to secure the border. They've been trying to make sure our country's in a much better spot. But look, my job is to uphold the laws of Texas. My job is to uphold the Constitution of Texas and the United States, and I'll do that no matter what. And I've got a history of standing up and doing what I think is right. And sometimes that might put me at odds with some folks. But at the end of the day, I'm in line with the president like 99% of the time. In fact, I have the highest voting record in the state of Texas of any member of Congress in terms of its alignment with the president's agenda, the MAGA agenda, the Republican platform, the second highest in the House of Representatives. But I also have a history of standing up when I think I need to do what's right.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you and him haven't always seen eye to eye. I know like the House GOP leadership position. I believe he endorsed Congresswoman Elise Stefanik over you. Do you still see yourself being cooperative in the years ahead?
Yeah, well, the president's a friend. Elise is a friend. Not everybody sees eye to eye with, frankly, anybody. I mean, my wife and I don't always see eye to eye. My, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were sparring from the time that they were founding the Republic all the way until July 4th, 1826, when they both died the same day. And Adams died saying Jefferson lives, not knowing Jefferson had passed away that morning. You can have disagreements in politics and move forward because you've got the same mission in mind.
You mentioned ICE earlier in this interview, if I heard you correctly. Has the administration handled deportations entirely correctly in your view? And as Attorney General, would you support ICE operations in Texas without restriction?
I support fully working with ICE to remove the people who need to be removed from the United States. There's 1.5 million people under orders of removal. There are tens of thousands of dangerous individuals that were dumped into the United States that are endangering the people. I mentioned Jocelyn Nungare, and we just gloss over these things. Like Jocelyn Nungare was a beautiful little 14-year-old girl who was raped and murdered under a bridge in Houston, Texas. Her mama, Alexis, is a friend of mine who was my guest at the inauguration of President Trump. We should never allow that to happen in the state of Texas. And jurisdictions that don't work with ICE, you're endangering the people of this country. And by the way, you're also endangering migrants because you're not doing what needs to be done to stop the flow and the stop of the abuse by cartels of migrants in the name of profit. So we have a duty to establish the rule of law in this country. It's why people come here. And so I stand by ICE. I think that we would under my efforts as Attorney General, we would work with ICE in total cooperation. And frankly, every jurisdiction in the state of Texas should be engaging in 287G agreements to work with them to carry out the laws of the United States.
You mentioned drug cartels there. Is there anything you would like to see done as AG to help, reduce the impact of drug cartels?
Well, I mean, we're doing it right now by stopping the flow of people across the border so you can focus on the ports of entry. Fentanyl is now dropping. We had thousands of people in the state getting killed by fentanyl poisonings. We had that occur in the school district where we live. We had 15 kids that died or had to be resuscitated by Narcan in 1 year. Like, it was absurd. And we've got to do more to stop that. And we'll work with the administration to do that. But I also think you've got to be aggressive in ensuring that we're not engaging in recidivism or allowing recidivism to occur. We've got to put bad guys in jail. And part of my job as Attorney General is to work to ensure that there aren't local DAs putting people on the street. And I agree with Governor Abbott, and I've said it long before I even heard the governor talking about it. We need more state prosecutorial functions so that we can put bad guys in jail. We're the 8th biggest economy in the world. We're the state of Texas. We should have an effort in Austin to be able to have original jurisdiction to put bad guys in jail when they're engaging in organized crime, cartels, gangs, drugs that are killing our people.
It's my understanding you just said you want to reduce recidivism. Is
Sure.
that right? How do you go about doing that?
Put bad guys in jail.
Do you think that's it? Nothing more to it than that?
I mean, look, when bad guys are in jail, they're not engaging in more crime. That's just my position. I mean, I'm a prosecutor. That's what I believe. Look, I do think there's room for redemption, but you got to earn it. And it can't be because judges just decide to wake up one day and put somebody on the street because they want to abuse our bail system. And then you end up with a second, third, fifth, 10th, 20th time felon who's on the streets that kills a cop, kills a kid, rapes a girl. None of that on my watch.
Now, I want to talk about something you brought up in an interview that was published last month surrounding a court case that involved Tyler ISD. We talked about Mr. Wrights. We talked with Mr. Wrights a little bit about it earlier. Ply versus Doe.
Sure.
It's my understanding you're not the biggest fan of that ruling. If elected Attorney General, do you plan on taking action to overturn the decision?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another place where I probably say that we could have been more aggressive over the last several years in the Office of Attorney General and targeting what was very clearly a misguided Supreme Court opinion in 1980, I think two, might have been three, where the Supreme Court said that the state of Texas has to fund the education of children who are here illegally. Now, everybody here, has a heart for kids and want to make sure they're okay, but they can get educated in their home country. They can get whatever sponsors or legal efforts to be able to come to the United States, but we shouldn't be undertaking a unfunded mandate because the Supreme Court decided that there's somehow a constitutional right for the people of Texas to have to educate people who came here in violation of law. So Plyler v. Doe should be challenged. It should be overturned. And then we can have a reasonable debate as the state of Texas and the people in this country as to how we want to carry forward.
You say this is an unfunded mandate. Does the state's budget not currently cover this?
Well, we have the federal government through the court telling us we have to do it. That means the taxpayers of the state of Texas, the taxpayers of Tyler, the taxpayers across the country have to fund the education of children who are here illegally. I don't find that to be something that I can go out and sell to the people of Texas as a good idea, nor would I.
As Attorney General, you would be responsible for an office of hundreds of lawyers. Why do you believe you have the experience to lead an agency of that size?
Well, it's a great question. There's almost 700 lawyers. There's 4,100 employees because we have child support there as well. I've been the first assistant attorney general. That means I was at the top of the pyramid right under the AG. I've had to make the decisions. I've had to figure out how to run that agency across the board, including hiring lawyers. I've had to go and testify in front of the legislature. I've been a former federal prosecutor in court, standing before judges, including the federal judges of the Eastern District of Texas. I've been somebody who's had to stand up and be counted on to lead as someone in Congress and put my own name out there. And I think that's who you want at the top of the position at the AG's office, leading it so that people can follow.
The March 3rd primary is just over a month away.
Sure.
Is there anything I didn't ask you would like to tell our audience before then?
No, look, I mean, I'm a, 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And, I had a 3-month-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. And I made it through the other end of that, and I promised myself and my wife and the good Lord that I would leave everything on the field to try to fight to defend this country and this state. That's what I'll do as Attorney General. I'm the only one candidate that I think makes all of the, holds all of the necessary qualities to be able to be the Attorney General. One, I've been elected. I've been elected multiple times, and I've had to go stand up. I've beaten a Democrat, Wendy Davis, in a big general election fight in 2020 in a close election in a close district. I've been a federal prosecutor. I've been a first assistant attorney general. I've been in court. I've done the job. I've been a lawyer. Importantly, I've been a proven conservative with an unassailable voting record and track record. So I think I'm the right guy for the job.
Congressman Chip Roy, and Republican candidate for Texas Attorney General.
Thanks, y'all.
We appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate you being here
Yeah.
in Tyler.
God bless you guys.